Hi folks, I'm back, and let me stick on topic this time. 4:30, June 8th, Saturday, still about 74 degrees. My batteries are not charged up. It was kind of a rainy, dreary day. The sun might have come out for a few minutes, but I kind of slept through it. I was trying to peek out this morning. Purpose of this video is kind of a mail check. And a couple of comments. You guys remember Big Red? Well, when I bought a flywheel for Big Red, I did not realize that there were two kinds of flywheels. This is a Mitsubishi, M-I-T-S-U-B-U, or Mitsubishi, M-U-B, anyway, the hell with my spelling. So, that's who made this flywheel, and this is the one I bought last week on eBay. And you could see there's a bit of a problem with the coil. It doesn't go all the way in. I mean, you could kind of force it in there, but then it doesn't turn, and that doesn't do you much good. So the flywheel I bought doesn't work with the coil I bought. The coil I bought is the same as the one that came out of it, so I'm just using this. Here's the right flywheel, and it's not all chewed up like that one on the floor is, and you can see the coil goes right in. This is known as an ND. It appears that the ND flywheels were the early flywheels that Honda used on these bikes. So if you have an earlier Honda Big Red, it has an ND flywheel, and by the way, they did put ND flywheels on 250 SXs and TRX 250s. They all seemed that the earlier guys had them. Particularly 1985 seems to be big on the ND flywheel. So if you get to the point where you got to change a stator, you gotta kind of make sure that your flywheel and your stator match. These flywheels, the thicker ones, seem to be more common on eBay. You can see the space is thicker. See how this is thinner here? So that's one thing. Anyway, I finally got the right flywheel, and I got the right coil, and now this rig could go together. And if I get one thing done this entire week, is that this rig is finally put together. It's out of my garage. It's done. This thing has, financially, I paid $300 for the bike. I got to dig up another tire for it because I ran this tire over with the backhoe loader and popped it. But altogether, $300 for the bike. Then flywheels, I have $100 out on. The coil, I have $100 out on. So that takes me to $500. The carburetor, I had to didn't have the choke valve, so I had to order that, which was $25. So $5 and a quarter. You know, gasket set. Let's make it an even $600 I have in this rig. $600 is a lot of money to have into a Big Red without plastic. To buy the plastic for this thing, delivered to the house, it's around $400. So I got $1,000, you know, so if I put the plastic on it, make it look nice, dig up a headlight for it, and I think I have the headlight, but it looked like crap. But anyway, dig up the headlight and put the whole thing together. You know, I have $1,000 into a bike, you know, that I'm not making any money on. So, you know, not that I'm ever going to sell it, but I didn't steal it either, you know. So basically, I took a $300 bike, and if I put plastic on it, you know, let's forget the plastic. I took a $300 bike, turned it into a $600 bike, and it's debatable if it's worth $600 without plastic. So there's that, ready to go. Ordered some parts this week. This tube is for This bike here. You guys remember this bike? It's a 350. No, that's not a 350. There it is, under the blue tarp. I'm looking at it going, that only has two-wheel drive. That's the 350 under the blue tarp. That front tire, the one closest to me, needs a tube. Once I put the tube in that, I think that bike, it starts, it runs, it moves, so I got to put a tube into it. I need to put a muffler on it because I don't want to draw too much attention from my neighbors, even though they are a bit of a distance. So I got to put a muffler on it. Work on the wiring a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to redo the wiring harness, if I'm going to patch the wiring harness, if I'm going to rig the wiring harness. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the wiring harness. But I'd really like that bike to be a start, run, move, use. It pulls like a mule, like an ox. So I'd like to get that bike running. I don't know if I'm going to use it for snowplow, use it for just a beater around the property, or what I'm going to do with it. Musty One took a 4x4. I think it's a Suzuki quad. He extended it, put a bed on it. I think you got to manually dump the bed back on it. So he kind of took a Suzuki 4x4 and turned it into somewhat of a mule type vehicle. That's something in consideration, but anyway, the trick is to get it running, get it moving before I get fancy. So that's one thing from eBay. Another thing from eBay, there was, I think it was a 200E, where the guy sold the entire electrical system. We're talking switches, we're talking CDI, we're talking, it was probably an E, as a matter of fact, a 200 with electric start, because it doesn't have the bigger CDI. You need the bigger CDI to have the reverse interlock switch, and it doesn't seem to have a reverse interlock switch. So I'm thinking it's just the plain ordinary, it doesn't have a reverse on it. Anyway, so it came with all the wiring, including the spark coil and all that. This was $20 and $20 shipping. Probably a lot of people saw the $20 shipping, or $21 or $22 shipping. It was like $20 and $22 to ship it. I think they saw the $22 shipping and then they said, screw it, I don't want it. But little things like the headlight could theoretically go over there. It won't really be the correct headlight. The correct headlight for this guy actually sits in a bucket, and you could take it out and kind of use it as a handheld headlight. Even looking at those forks, I'm not quite sure those forks are proper, unless that whole headlight assembly bolts to that and then comes loose from the bucket. I'm not sure, but anyway. But this thing came as a complete wiring harness, so for $40 this was a good deal. I ordered more CDI units, and Raymond, as a matter of fact, Raymond, I need to pull the real CDI unit off of these. I'll do that. I don't have any loose right now, and the one-handed man, I'll never succeed in ripping that off for today, so I'll do that another time. Anyway, Raymond, I need to show Raymond the numbers on the CDI unit. He says he might have a connection there in England, in the UK, to get me some. But I bought the CDI units, the smaller ones. See the fat ones? See the smaller ones? Supposedly the smaller ones are plug and play for this guy. And I do want to have spare parts for this, so theoretically it'll run forever, and until my sons inherit it. So with that, I'm trying to get some spares of the right CDI and put them on the side. This came with the CDI. Obviously I haven't tested it yet, so one only knows if it's good. It might be the reason why the bike got parted out, is because the CDI is bad. I ordered couple more ignition cables. These 185s are ignition coils, primary coils. These things are kind of renowned for those going bad. Turns out that one did not have a bad one on it. The bad thing about the China version of these, you see how this guy, how the tap is way out front, and this guy, it's kind of in the middle, in the back here. When you're way out front, you kind of clear the housing and you don't have to grind anything. When you're back here, you actually have to remove some of the stator housing to be able to hook this up without shorting things out. So, ignition coils. So I got a spare. Got a spare one of those. Tube. Talked about that already. Already talked about the flywheel. And one last thing. AC/DC. These guys kind of were around a little later in my teenage years. One of their first big hits, It's a Long Way to the Top When You Rock and Roll. That's one where they have the bagpipes that really wail. That kind of came out, I don't know, 77, 78-ish. And my musical tastes were already kind of formed, and they weren't as aggressive for that time period of rock and roll. My tastes weren't there. But more recently, I kind of rediscovered AC/DC, and I've been enjoying the heck out of them. Once again, Long Way to the Top When You Rock and Roll. She Shook Me All Night Long. Thunderstruck is amazing. Just a few off the top of my head. Anyway, I saw this, and it was cheap. It was like $8 to ship it. So for $16, and what it does is it let me bring it into the dark here. It flashes. I mean, if you watch the concerts on YouTube, you see people wearing these things, and it's kind of, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. Maybe put it on one of my Halloween things downstairs. So AC/DC, folks. Anyway, yeah, I was thinking of building a fancy golf cart, one of the crazy golf carts, and naming it Thunderstruck, because I mean, if just watch the videos on YouTube, particularly the live ones. They did a bunch of concerts that are on YouTube from Argentina, Riverdale, Riverblade, River somebody, and the concerts are amazing. So if you get a few minutes, go and watch those. I think that's it for this week. Tomorrow I have the flea market. The weather is supposed to clear up, so I'll be at the flea market tomorrow, so you get a flea market video. After the flea market, I'll grab a quick nap to put a charge back on the batteries. Then I'll be out here, and hopefully, with some big luck, I could get this thing put together. All I have to do is beat that flywheel off, clean up the Red Death, put it back together again. That's not too long. Then I got to mess with the carburetor, which shouldn't be too long. Then I got to go through the wiring yet again to make sure everything's kosher, to make sure everything's fired up. It's probably about 3-4 hours worth of work, 5. So maybe I can squeeze that out tomorrow, and we'll actually be able to take this thing for a ride. If I, after putting $600 into it, if I discover that the tranny's blown, the clutches are blown, boy, is that going to make me unhappy. About this bike, and I keep coming back to it, I had some indications that there was trouble. There's Red Death on both sides of the case, both the stator side and the clutch side. I saw the Red Death. I did check it. It had compression, so I think the cylinder and all the rest of it's okay, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to fire it up and discover there isn't some more stupidity up there. It appears as if they only took both sides of the cases off. It doesn't appear as if this has been split. I don't see anything for the other side of the case, but they were up in the head. You can see they were screwing around up here. But I mean, Well, that gasket looks somewhat new. I don't see Red Death, but I do see it looks somewhat new. So I don't know. Whenever you buy a kit bike, you got to be careful. I mean, from a parts point of view, before I pop that tire, I got the seat, I got a spare tube, I got an engine with a carburetor. Theoretically, I was okay, right? And I'm going to use the word theoretically. But now, trying to put this bike back together, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. All right, folks, I've been rambling for 15 minutes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for commenting. Live, love, and have a great time. Remember, tires down, handlebars up, and try not to get upside down in your projects. Thanks, folks.